everyone, welcome back inside the film room. I'm Zach Owens, and today I'm joined by the Emmy-winning actress Dove Cameron, who plays the lovely Ginny Banks on season 2 of Schmigadoon. Dove, welcome. How are you?
I'm really, really well. How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited to talk with you because, not to hype you up too much, but you're an Emmy-winning actress, you're a musical superstar, you're just at the top of your game. You've acted on West End productions, but that resume alone would put you, as the top dog on any set. But here in Chicago, you are surrounded by Emmy award-winning actors, Tony Award winners, Oscar winners, comedy
Oscar.
icons. There
Yeah.
are there are so many talented people here. What is it like to just have a legend everywhere you look?
Oh, I mean, talk about, first of all, intimidating, but also like wonderful. It's such a, I think it's everybody's, or at least my aspiration to always be surrounded by people that you are absolutely besotted by and
Mhm.
constantly learning from and fascinated by, and also then in love with and like in deep community with. It's really such a mind-boggling honor. Like when I joined the cast in season one, I was one of the last people to join. Um, and I was looking at the cast list, just being like, I've said this before, but being like standing on the corner of a street with a megaphone, being like, I'll do anything, like I'll hold the lights, I'll be a grip, like please just let me on the set. I'm such a fan of everybody, and I was like frothing at the mouth to even meet them. So it's really such an honor. And then of course at this point now we're like 3 years deep, and
Mhm.
I just couldn't love them more. They're like my family. It's really wild.
Yeah, it's obvious. Like obviously, the chemistry in and of itself in season 1 was fantastic, but to take it up a notch in season 2, like everybody's got a year under their belt. You're firing on all cylinders, so it's you can feel it as a viewer, just the way that you all work together, bounce off each other, care about each other. So it's
I'm
very
happy.
tangible. But your
It's good to
character
hear.
specifically, Jenny Banks, you have said in the past that you never want to play a character who would bore you, and Jenny absolutely is anything but boring. She talks a mile a minute. She's always got something going on. What was it about this character that, really grabbed your attention as Cinco's describing it to you?
Well, so yeah, we some of us knew who Cinco was kind of writing for us for the second season pretty early on. I think he came to me at one point saying, there was some sort of whispers about maybe like a, I think at one point it was more of a Roxy Hart character, because I think that was when I was still blonde, and it was early on in season one, and he was like, do you know how to tap dance? And I was like, not on your life. I was like, no, I don't. And then he sort of towards the end of season one was like, what do you feel about being a sort of a Sally Bowles,
Mhm.
Val McKelly amalgamation? And I was like, you would trust me to do that? That's
Yeah.
so crazy. But it's amazing because Cinco is like, he's sort of like this incredible showrunner, director, writer, visionary, like fairy godmother. He's I just feel like he gave us such a gift this season. He really wrote to everybody's strengths, whether they knew that those were their strengths or not. Like I wasn't certain I was going to be able to pull this off. And every day, actually, I came home feeling like I didn't.
Well, you
And
absolutely did. Let me stop you right
thank
there.
you.
So,
Thank you. That's very sweet. But yeah, I was incredibly excited, and I was a huge fan of Liza's interpretation of Sally Bowles in the film iteration. I grew up watching it. I was a huge cabaret person, huge fan of Alan, in the role of the MC. So I just really wanted to make sure that we got it right, and constantly trying to give everybody what they wanted. So I'm very happy.
yeah, it turned out fantastic. You mentioned the blonde hair, throwing it back to Betsy in season 1. That character was very much like a caricature of, the way that a woman was written by a man back in the 40s and the 50s. You crushed it with like the self-awareness there, and then we've got this strong, independent woman in Jenny who's, pursuing her dreams.
Yeah.
As an actor, which one, both of them have their pros and cons, I guess, or mainly, I guess, all just pros. But what's your favorite between the two? If you had to pick, which one appeals to you more? Because they're both so fun characters.
Oh, I mean, definitely Sally Bowles. Definitely the Jenny character is much more interesting to me. I grew up mostly on the sort of cabarets and Sweeney's and Chicago's and Jesus Christ Superstars. I had
Mhm.
the like live recording of Jekyll and Hyde on DVD. Like this was really my era. And Phantom, like all of these sort of more macabre, darker musicals were were really my MO. I think I would go to school in middle school like dressed as different creatures all the time. Like I was a very much a theater kid. Like all of those like
Uh,
stereotypes that you're like, oh, the theater kids, like that was me. I was showing up at school with like fangs, like I was really doing the most. And so this whole season is really more up my alley, but also Jenny as a character is more interesting to me because they're really the whole joke of Betsy is that there isn't more to her. Like she's
mhm,
really just like you said, she's a projection of the male fantasy of the sort of, political um cultural view of women
right.
at the time. And with Jenny, she is yeah, she's more freed, but also the person who really keeps her from becoming the person that she could be as herself because she's so deeply traumatized that this like manic pixie dream girl projection that she's adopting
Right.
is her way of sort of trying to rewrite who she is and like the not reveal her pain even to herself. And so that's just always more interesting to play, is somebody who's wearing a mask and thinks no one can tell.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many layers to Jenny, not only Jenny, but everybody in this season because it's such a very real, heavy topic of like, what does it mean to be happy? What am I gonna do to find my life's fulfillment? And I
Yeah.
know that you have just always been in your personal life very open about your personal life, your mental health, everything. Was there some sort of like fulfillment taking on a project that is not just like glitz and glam musical numbers, but having that heft, that substance behind it?
Yeah, well, I think that's actually kind of the whole interesting rub about Schmigadoon in general as a concept, isn't it? It's that it's hiding so many real human conversations that we have with ourselves every day in this sort of larger than life, like very camp exterior that
Mhm.
allows us to escape and not really realize what the messaging is until the very end. And Cinco does this amazing thing of taking the audience on a journey with him where you're like, what am I even seeing? Like, what weird acid trippy world am I looking at? And how in the world did Apple agree to make this show? And then at the end, you're like, oh, I'm really affected by this. And it's like this sort of
Yeah.
Trojan horse messaging. So I would say that like every project I do really takes me on a journey. Adopting a character always takes me on a journey because it allows me the introspection that like I need while also focusing on somebody who's not me.
Mhm.
But really always at the end of Schmigadoon, I feel like I've really had like a full sort of human cycle. So yeah, I'm always very affected working on this show.
Yeah. I mean, behind all of the musical numbers, the kaputs of it all, there's still a very serious message being told. But you've rightfully so been getting a lot of attention for Kaput. The scene, the musical number is fantastic. But for me personally, episode 4, I love the Something Real, the duet with you and Aaron Tveit. That was my favorite song from the whole season. And I just love the intimacy of the moment, the duet, the
Yeah.
back and forth. You two didn't really get to work together much in season 1, and now we're kind of this power couple in Schmicago. It's so great to see. What was that like to come together at last?
At long last. It's funny because Aaron and I make this joke. He's like, he's like become one of my really good friends. But in season one, we didn't speak. Like I didn't have a scene with him. And it was
Right.
also at the height of the pandemic. And so if you weren't in a scene, you didn't see each
You
other.
weren't hanging out on
And
set or anything.
no, we weren't allowed. Half the
Mhm.
scenes that we had with other people, actually, we were acting against like a tennis ball because all the time that we didn't have to literally be there, the guidelines said, go home. And
Right.
so there was no cast extracurriculars except for me and Alan. But that's just because we fell in love. But there was no real like cast bonding really in season one as much as there was after and then season two. But so when Aaron and I knew we were going to get the storyline, I think it was based on one moment. And if you go back at the end of season one during the finale, there's like one moment where Aaron and I are in the same frame and we like share this look, and the characters like have this look at each other.
Foreshadowing.
And it's literally just on accident. Like we just like look at each other, but there was this like moment of like a character chemistry. And Cinco was like, huh. And so he wrote this whole storyline for us literally based on, I think, that one moment. Um, or that's at least what I think we talked about.
That's
And
funny.
it was such
I
a
was just talking with Aaron and he was saying he didn't mention the moment, but he was like, "Yeah, Dove and I were on the press tour together and they must have just seen how well we were gelling." And so
yeah.
they wrote that into season 2.
Yeah, it was such a joy. I think Aaron and I both feel really, really special about that number because You know, on-screen chemistry isn't always like, even when you're buddies with someone in real life, like on-screen chemistry is its totally own thing. It like has
Mhm.
nothing to do with like however you feel about the person in real life. Like you might be best friends and the chemistry is awful. Or you might like really, you know, not really know each other and the chemistry is amazing. So it was really lucky because we just felt so comfortable and we had such a good time. And I think when they told us, I was like, are we gonna rehearse this number? And they were like, you're not doing anything, you're just staring at each other. I was like, what? I was like kind of scared. I was like, oh, okay, it's a long song, really? Like, what are we gonna do for all that time? And they were like, you're just gonna stare at each other. And I think that there was something really powerful about how that translated because it just felt so human. And it allowed for like all of these kind of intricacies to sneak into the storyline that we really both had a fun time with.
Yeah, you two together were magic. The From that all the way through, both of you like being betrayed by Josh and Melissa, trying to figure out, ending up with the all of the orphans. It's a great arc for you too. And I was excited
Yeah.
that this season showed more of, season one's very hyper focused on Josh and Melissa getting their true love, happy ending and getting out. And then we get a lot more of the happy endings for everybody else. So that was fun to see
Yeah.
around.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you liked it. Thank you. That's very kind.
Of course. Well, I have a couple quick hitters here before we wrap
Okay.
up. But in theater, anything can happen in a real production on stage. You've got an understudy who's going to maybe fill in if somebody gets sick. Imagine Schmicago is a live theatrical production. You're an understudy. What role do you want to step into outside of Jenny Banks?
Easy, hands down, Jane Krakowski's character. When I read the script, I was screaming. I was live texting Cinco being like, how dare you be so brilliant? How dare you gender flip Billy Flynn? How dare you? Who are you? Like it was such a brilliant thing for him to do. And to give it to Jane, I posted on my stories last night that I proposed to her. I am so painfully in love with that woman. I would do anything. I would leave it all behind. I love her so much. She's brilliant.
It's
Emmy,
so
Emmy,
good.
Emmy.
Yes.
But if I could be an understudy, it would be for Jane's role. She just gets all the most fun this season in terms of like roller skating blindfolded and like trapeze. She's brilliant. I could
Sparklers
never
hanging. Yeah. She,
I could never do it like her, but I would give it a good college try.
Yeah, I was just talking to Jaime, and he has played Billy Flynn, and I was asking him about it, and he said, "Damn you, Jane Krakowski, you've ruined it for everybody else."
She's
That was
so
that
insane.
was it. Well, I'd love to see that. I know Jane's fantastic. I'm sure you would crush it though. Next question here. We're out at the bar. It's karaoke night, musical theater karaoke. What is Dove Cameron's go-to show tune?
I will be subjecting everyone to A New Life from Jekyll and Hyde. I will be
You have the
screaming it.
DVD.
Yeah, how did it? I wanted to play Lucy and Jekyll and Hyde since I was like 8. It's hilarious because she's like such a dark character, but at 8, I was like, that's me. I was like convinced. I was like, Mom, in another life, I was Lucy. She faces like a grisly end. She's a very dark character, but I loved her. I just related to her so much. And also, A New Life, the way that it just constantly ascends and like every time you think the song is gonna end, it's like Beyonce's Love on Top. It's just like
Just key change,
like
key change, key change.
Keisha, yeah, it's so good, and no one can sing it like Linda Eder, but again, I would give it my best.
Hey, we're just here to try. That's all we can do. So,
Thank you. I needed that.
well, we've got this era of the golden age is done in Schmigadoon season 1. We've got the Schmicago era covered now. Where would you like to see a season 3? Is there a specific musical or number that is calling your name for what you would like to see if there's a season 3?
You know, I can't say because if I'm honest, I know too much.
Right. I know that's funny because I know that you had talked about like Cinco in season 1 was like giving the notes, and so did he do the same sort of thing for mapping out a potential season 3 here?
I plead the fifth. I plead the fifth.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a million ways that it could go. I've heard a lot of like fan theories, which is always fun. But
just
yeah, I
based off
don't.
the name, Les Schmiz is a great option. So
Not Les Schmiz. Somebody was saying Schmin the Heights or Schmatz or Schmentz. I was like, guys, listen, hey, this we could go in a million places, but
yeah, I've also heard
I'm
into
very
into the schmuds.
into the schmuds, not that. Yeah, we could go anywhere. Yeah. I know Aaron has a lot of ideas, but it could really go anywhere. I'm excited to see if we get a season 3. I'm excited to see what Cinco does.
Yeah, I will be there on day 1 checking it out. But last question, Apple TV Plus, you know, you've brought Broadway to Apple with Schmigadoon. Now flipping the script, if you were to bring an Apple TV original to Broadway outside of Schmigadoon, is there a show that you think, you know, between Ted Lasso, The Morning Show, Severance, all these shows that they have, is there one that you think would be best suited for a Broadway musical?
Actually, yes. I've never thought about this, but now that you say it, I think you and I have a really brilliant idea cooking because I've been watching Hello Tomorrow. Is that what it's
Yes,
called?
Billy Crudup,
With Billy
amazing.
Crudup. So first of all, Billy Crudup, me and Billy Crudup and Jane Krakowski on a big open farm with cats and children, and we're baking pies. Like, wow, bury me now. I love that man. Um, sorry to their partners. You can come too. Um, but I just think that there's something so incredible about that show. I've always been so fascinated by the sort of Stepford Wives aesthetic, that kind of
Mhm.
like something since
Retrofuturism, like yeah, all of that.
Jetsons retrofuturism is like the bread and butter of my favorite thing to see.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I think that it would really lend itself well to a musical. Like I can already picture like these sort of like larger than life tap numbers, like Man on the Moon, like all the titles are coming to me now, honey. But I think it would be brilliant. I would love to see that adapted for stage.
All
I've been
right.
fascinated watching Apple like continue to make like really interesting choices for shows like that.
Yeah, well, we'll be in touch. We'll make that happen. Get somebody on the phone, and we'll call up Tim Cook, make it happen. So we'll see it on Broadway one day. But no,
Beautiful.
thank you so much. It was a blast chatting with you. I love this season of Schmicago, and I really just want to see it flourish throughout award season. Jane, you, everybody else, let's get those Emmys. It's gonna be a blast.
Let's get those Emmys, he says. You're very, very sweet. Thank you so much for your time and your energy, and I
Of
hope you
course.
have a great rest of your day.